These are the 1916 Dunlap coke ovens in Dunlap, Tennessee. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. But this isn't the start of the story. For that, we need to take a short walk and go back to the beginning. Through the trees, if you're lucky, you can just make out the outline of Fredonia Mountain. Coal mining began here in 1899. Like many mountains in the area, it does contain coal, and coal in the 1800s, early 1900s was a major commodity. Well, coke sells for more than coal, so in 1902 they built the first of the coke ovens here. 24 coke ovens were built. So these were fire brick ovens, 12 feet in diameter, about 3.7 meters in diameter. There's a small opening at the top and what's called a window in the front to allow you to empty the processed coke. The way these worked, these are beehive coke ovens, and you would have a rail line across the top. From that, you would dump the coal into the top, light the fire, and then you would close up the entrance. You would let the process run for about 72 hours in this case. And during that time, all the impurities would burn away, and you would be left with pure carbon, or nearly pure carbon, in the form of coke. The process, you created a lot of heat, as you can see from these fused fire bricks. After the first 24 ovens were built in 1902, they were successful. Demand for coke and coal increased, so they expanded the operation. In 1906, they built this additional set of 144 beehive ovens adjacent to the old one, actually between Fredonia Mountain and the first set that we looked at. They also invested a bit more, and they installed a steam-powered coal washer. Now, a coal washer is necessary because the coal here wasn't entirely clean, and coal is often not entirely clean. But the cleaner your coal, the better quality your coke, the more you can sell it for. So we have a bank on each side of this area down here at the bottom. I had a rail line going through there to move the coal from the mountain. But also, when the coal is done, when the coke is done, after 72 hours, you would open up the still incredibly hot window to the coke oven, and you would rake out the coke. Now immediately, you would want to quench that in water. If you didn't immediately quench it in water, the coke would pretty much immediately burst into flames, and you would almost quickly lose the entire batch of coke. By quenching it with water, though, to cool it down, it would not spontaneously combust, and that would allow you to harvest the coke. If we look into this coke oven, this is in a little bit better shape. Better shape, that's a funny term for it. If you look at the bottom, that discolored, smoothed area, that was originally the same fire brick as on the top, but there's been far, far more heat down there that's melted and fused those bricks. The front area here is collapsed. This section has actually been excavated. anyway, after you pull out the coke and immediately quench it, it's sitting on this ledge now, and then you shovel it off down into this little valley, and you have another set of train cars running along both sides. You see there's a stone wall built up along the sides here, on both sides. So you take your now soaking wet coke, and you'd shovel it down into the coke cars down below, and from there it could be sent out for shipment. You can see that some of these 1906 ovens have survived a little better than others. They've been abandoned here for quite a while. The tops have all collapsed, but the fronts on these ones survived. You still have the arches at the front, as well as some of the interior dome. And then you go back to seeing something that if you didn't know these were coke ovens, you probably wouldn't recognize them. Well, everything was going great here till 1916. And that's when the steam-powered coal washer that was here exploded. Not only was it gone, also damaged the coal tipple just beyond it, and several of the ovens that are just on the hillside here. That led the company to do some serious thinking about their future, and if they had one. And maybe they didn't make the right decision. So there's not much left of the from the 1916 explosion, but really that's not too surprising because, well, they did continue operation here. So they cleaned away the debris and they expanded again. If we go to the top of this wall, that should be where the coal was brought in from the mine to the tipple. It should mean this steep hill stops being a steep hill and starts being something you could run a train down. The stone wall we were looking at just a moment ago, this is the top of it. This is where the coal was dumped through the coal washer and went over to the tipple. While we're here, let's talk about the mine. And, well, before we even talk about the mine, let's talk about the railroad. Now, if you're looking at this, you might think that looks a little bit steep to actually traverse with a standard early 1900s steam locomotive. And, yep, you're right, it is. Here at Fredonia Mountain and Dunlap, they did something that a lot of mines used. And as they used a incline railway instead of using a standard locomotive. So an incline railway, which we're walking up the bed of it now, and it's a fairly steep hill. The incline railway is a system where you have two equal cars, typically, and a single cable at the top. That cable goes through a motor of some kind, would have been a steam engine in this case, The cars themselves are equally weighted. When they're filled at the top, the steam engine's really providing more of a braking force coming down, because you're sending full cars down and you're bringing empty cars up. Want to see more about how incline railways work? Check out my video on the Lookout Mountain Incline Railway. It's a link down in the description. We've left the coke ovens park, and we're actually in private property now. This is a private rifle club, but they allow people to come out here and hike up the historic incline. At times, this trail may be closed. In addition, they recommend you not come out here during the summer because this trail has lots of venomous snakes and lots of bees. So mines liked these inclined railways because it was a very efficient way to move a large amount of coal or other ores from hilltop mines down to either processing facilities or rail yards at the bottom of the mountain. There's reportedly a number of mine entrances on this mountain, and of course none of them at all are safe. So if you see a mine entrance, unless you really know what you're doing, you probably don't want to go into it. So I won't be going into any of the mines that I find up here, assuming I find any. Something I haven't noticed yet is a widening anywhere. It may have been just back there to allow for passing. I don't know what kind of incline they ran here. It's possible they ran a 4-rail, in which case there'd be very narrow gauge, but no passing zone needed. I did mention it's getting warm up here, right? All my camera stuff. Don't actually have room for the whole jacket in there, but it's an easy enough trail. I'll just stick out the top. Let's see if we can get through this. Let's see if we can get through this safely. And unfortunately, it does look like there's no trail maintenance at all past here. Get more brush and down trees. As we look down here, you can see this is a steep incline. But fortunately, with the cable incline railway, they were able to move the coal down here safely, move the empty coal cars back up. Today, however, looks like we're not going to be able to get to the top. So let's go back down to the bottom of the hill and we'll pick up the story where we left off. Coming down where I mentioned the halfway trail on the way up, you can definitely see the difference here. The piece we're on, most of the trail is either elevated above the sides like this or cut through rock on both sides, except right here around the halfway point where it kind of widens out and levels out. So this is probably either a 2 or a 3 rail incline. A 4 rail incline, each car has its own dedicated rail system, and they don't have any switches or anything. A 3 rail incline, they each have their own outer rail and they share an inner rail. When they reach the center, the inner rail splits into 2 rails and moves apart. You need less room except at the center crossover point. On a 2 rail system, you run 2 rails for nearly the entire length. And you can see here, got considerably wider space, and just ahead, it goes narrow again. A 2 rail system, you only need enough room for 1 car all the way up and down, except again in the center. And then using different wheels, 1 car will always go to, say, the north side, and the other car will always go to the south side, whether it's going up or down. So there's no actual switches, no mechanical switching involved. There's actually flanges on both sides of the outer wheels of the cars. And that flange on the outer wheel and the inner wheel being flat at the crossovers allows the rail cars to pass in the center without worrying about any kind of switching, which is extremely complex if you're running cables across the rails to try to also figure out how to manage to do switches in the midst of that. Anyway, I'll rejoin you at the bottom. And of course, I dropped the jacket out of the pack and had to climb halfway back up the mountain to get it. I knew that would happen. Oh well, it's good exercise. See you at the bottom. So you might be wondering, why didn't they just give up in 1916 after the coal washer explosion? Well, think of what was going on at the time. We were right in the middle of World War I with huge demands for coal, for coke, for steel. Coke is a critical component in the steel making process, and they were producing coke here. It was still very profitable. We were probably at or near peak demand for coal at that point. So they were still mining. So they rebuilt. They got a new $1 million coal washer. They built another 100 coke ovens here. And you can see, unlike the ones that we've been going by before, these ones had massive stone faces on them. Should be far more durable than the other ones. Now the insides are still the same. The insides were still the same fire brick. That's how you make coke ovens, at least the beehive coke ovens. But the stone faces are why these ones are in so much better shape. You can see the hooks on some of the arches. And those hooks were used to secure doors, making it easier to, when you charge it, make it easier to block up the entry. You would tend to block it up completely except for maybe about an inch or so. Let just a little bit of air in. If you let too much in, all your coal burns away. And when you open it up, you have nothing left but ash. If your opening's not quite big enough, on the other hand, the fire goes out and you have to start over. So you want just about an inch, inch and a half. But obviously this construction was expensive. Now compared to what they had before, which didn't have much of a face on it at all, to this big, massive stone construction, these walls are, what, about 1.5 feet or 1/2 meter thick of stone wall, laid stone. This was expensive. The $1 million coal washer, that was expensive, and worse still, it didn't work very well. The $1 million stone washer apparently didn't even work as well as the old one that blew up in 1916. Still, they had a coal mine running. They had all these coking ovens, so they tried to keep going until 1920 when they finally filed for bankruptcy. So the Cumberland Coal Corporation actually survived its 1920 bankruptcy, and it continued to operate. They continued producing coal, continued producing coke out of the coke ovens here. However, it was never the same again. Demand for coal and coke dropped following World War I. That was not helped at all by the dieselization of railroads, which was just starting to kick off at that point. Also reducing demand for coal. And finally, the Great Depression, which technically didn't start for quite a few more years, really hit coal first. In 1927, the mines here shut down. They just couldn't keep going anymore. Demand for coal continued to drop, demand for coke continued to drop, and they closed up and left. This is actually a recreation of one of the shafts up on top of the mountain. Had we been able to get up there today, that they've set up down here so people can see what it looked like today if you're not able to climb it, like, well, we weren't today. From 1927 until the mid-1980s, the coal mines and the coke ovens here sat idle. In the mid-1980s, a group of local residents decided there's something special here. This is something that's worth saving. And they acquired the property and were able to do some restoration work, do some excavation work around the coke ovens to show off the different generations. Do a reproduction here. There's some old mine equipment that's here in the park. I don't know how much of that actually came from the mines here. They also run festivals. There's a stage, so they run some concerts to help fund the operations here. There's a huge museum, which unfortunately is open summer weekends. It's all volunteers. And I'm here on a winter weekday, so I don't get to see the museum today. I did peek in the windows, though, and it does look good. So if you're around on a summer weekend, definitely make sure you hit up the museum. But even though it's been just shy of 100 years now since the last coal was mined on Fredonia Mountain, since the last coke was produced down here, nonetheless, this is the Industrial Revolution. Hey, wait just a second before you go. I need your help to keep the channel growing here. First thing you can do is really easy. Just like, subscribe, share this video. Tell all your friends about it. That spreads the word. YouTube will see that and we'll show this to more people. Commenting more than just 2 or 3 words. YouTube says that's the most important thing you can get. It's the best kind of user interaction there is. So you can comment more than just 2 or 3 words. Also, if you're able to and are interested in helping out financially, these are pretty expensive videos to film, a lot of travel costs on top of the hours of work I do here. You can help out at patreon.com/industrialrevolution or become a member here on YouTube or a single contribution through Super Thanks. Also have an affiliate store. If you click that, anything you buy there, a percentage of that purchase will come to help fund the channel. Thanks for your help and look forward to seeing you next week.